bringing to trial those alleged to be senior leaders of the Democratic Kampuchea regime at the extraordinary chambers in the Courts of Cambodia, the ECCC, has drawn a great deal of attention from Cambodians and the rest of the world. The ECCC, also known as the Khmer Rouge Tribunal, is part of the Cambodian court system. It is mandated to bring to trial senior leaders and those most responsible for crimes committed during Democratic Kampuchea from April 17, 1975 to January 6, 1979. The ECCC uses both Cambodian law and international law in its proceedings. It is currently handling 4 cases. So far, it has detained and indicted 5 persons in the first 2 cases. In cases 003 and 004, none of the 5 suspects have been charged or arrested as of February 2012. The court recently concluded its first case, known as Case 001, against Geng Gek Il, alias Doik. The Supreme Court chamber handed down its final judgment. The former chairman of Phnom Penh Security Prison S21 was convicted of crimes against humanity and grave breaches of the 1949 Geneva Conventions. He was sentenced to life in prison. On February 3, 2012, the Supreme Court chamber pronounced the final judgment. It upheld the guilty verdict rendered by the trial chamber in July 2010. It quashed the previous sentence and extended the 35-year term to imprisonment for life, the maximum sentence available under the law. The Supreme Court chamber affirmed that Duke held a central leadership role at the Security Center S21, where at least 12,272 prisoners were systematically tortured and eventually executed. It called the security prison the factory of death. The chamber noted that Duke showed dedication to refining the operations of S21. The decisions of the Supreme Court chamber are final and cannot be appealed. The final decision in Case 001 was welcomed by both survivors and observers. At the court, survivors of S21 welcomed the ruling. Doik, who is now 69 years of age, remains in the custody of the ECCC, pending finalization of arrangements for his transfer, in accordance with the law, to the prison in which he will serve his sentence. As for Case 002, the trial chamber continues the hearing of evidence which began on December 5, 2011, following opening statements. The trial, for which survivors have been waiting more than 3 decades, has finally begun. Since the first day, the 3 defendants in Case 002 have been brought into the courtroom to face a bench of national and international judges. The defendants are Khieu Sampan, 80 years of age, former head of state of Democratic Kampuchea; Nun Chia, 85 years of age, former chief of National Assembly and deputy secretary of the Communist Party of Kampuchea; and Ieng Sary, 86 years of age, former deputy prime minister and minister in charge of foreign affairs. They are charged with crimes against humanity, grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions of 1949, and genocide. They have the right to refute the charges against them, and they are presumed innocent unless their guilt has been established by a final judgment.
ថ្ងៃនេះខ្ញុំនួនជាត្រូវបានផ្ដល់ឲ្យនៅឱកាសមួយដែលខ្ញុំរងចាំយូរមកហើយគឺការបំភ្លឺជូនជនរួមជាតិអ្នកស្នេហាជាតិនិងកូនខ្មែរទាំងអស់អំពីការពិតដែលកើតមានឡើងក្នុងប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្ររបស់កម្ពុជាខ្ញុំបាទសូមប្រើប្រាស់សិទ្ធិរបស់ខ្ញុំក្នុងរដ្ឋធម្មនុញ្ញដោយរក្សាសិទ្ធិនៅស្ងៀមមិនឆ្លើយនឹងសំណួរទាំងឡាយនាពេលនេះ
ទិដ្ឋនេះមានចែងក្នុងមាត្រា31និង38នៃរដ្ឋធម្មនុញ្ញនៃប្រជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាខ្ញុំបាទមានបំណងប្រើប្រាស់ទិដ្ឋនេះនៅក្នុងការជំនុំជម្រះទាំងមូលហើយមិនមានបំណងឆ្លើយតបនឹងសំណួរណាមួយឡើយ
វាជារឿងក្តីរបស់ខ្ញុំមិនមែនជាសន្និសីទឬការប្រជុំនយោបាយណាមួយឡើយ
Missing from the courtroom was the accused Ying Tarit, the 79-year-old former Minister of Social Affairs. She was ruled unfit to stand trial because she suffers from dementia. However, the judges found that the unconditional release of Ying Tarit is not required. They directed that all available measures potentially capable of helping her to become fit to stand trial be taken. Ying Tarit is to remain in the detention center until the necessary arrangements for additional treatment, whether in a hospital or other appropriate facility in Cambodia, are finalized. For many observers, the ECCC has shown that it is able to conduct complex international criminal trials in accordance with international standards of justice. Its importance was underscored by Mr. Stephen Rapp, the U.S. Ambassador at Large for War Crimes, when he said,
"This is, at this time, the most important trial in the world."
They're trying these people for the murders and for the genocide and for the crimes against humanity that they committed during that period.
Along with other donor countries, France and Japan, co-chairs of the donor community's Friends of the Court, expressed their support for the court as a way to prevent similar atrocities in Cambodia and elsewhere, deliver justice to the victims, and strengthen the rule of law in Cambodia.
The government of Japan and myself also welcome very much the opening of the trial of case 002, because case 002 is the most significant and historic trial of this Khmer Rouge tribunal, and also the trial of the case 002 has been waiting for a long time by the Cambodian people.
Je crois que le procès principal commence, celui qui va juger les dirigeants du plus haut niveau de ce régime, et je crois que c'est évidemment essentiel. Nous savons tous qu'il y a eu au cours des derniers mois un certain nombre de polémiques autour de ce tribunal, comme d'ailleurs, je crois, de tous les tribunaux internationaux qui ont été mis en place depuis un quart de siècle. Maintenant, le procès commence, va trouver sa pleine dynamique. Les parties civiles, dont nous parlions à l'instant, vont pouvoir s'exprimer et bien la parole est maintenant à la justice. Je crois que c'est une date essentielle et je crois que chacun va être amené à constater l'importance du travail qui est fait au sein de ces chambres.
Chang Song, a former Minister of Information under the Lon Nol regime, was quoted in the Cambodia Daily as saying, "For me, looking from afar, it means a great and decisive step in the biggest trial in the history of Cambodia and one of the biggest trials in the history of the world." Mike Abramowitz, director of the Genocide Prevention Program at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, wrote in the Washington Post, "Just as there is no statute of limitations on the crimes of the Holocaust, the victims of the killing fields must see justice sooner or later." Navi Pillay, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, was quoted in the UN Center as saying, "This is another historic day for the people of Cambodia, many of whom have waited a long time to see the start of this trial, and who can at last begin to hear evidence of the atrocities committed all across this country over 30 years ago." Holding the trials in Cambodia, where the crimes were committed, has many benefits for Cambodians because they can participate in the trials and have more opportunities to learn about the court. The historic first day of opening statements attracted wide coverage in both local and international media. In Cambodia, local television and radio stations broadcast the hearings live to an audience of millions of people.
ខ្ញុំអរណាស់បានមានតឡាការខ្មែរក្រហមកាត់ដីទូខ្មែរក្រហមហ្នឹងទៅខ្ញុំធូរចិត្តដែរខ្ញុំសប្បាយចិត្តណាស់
ការ កាត់ក្តីនេះគឺពិតជាមានសារៈប្រយោជន៍ខ្លាំងបំផុតចំពោះខ្ញុំជានិស្សិតក៏ដូចជាប្រជាពលរដ្ឋខ្មែរទាំងមូលទាមទារនៅយុត្តិធម៌មួយដ៏ធំធេងចំពោះប្រជាពលរដ្ឋខ្មែរដែលនៅមានរស់រានជីវិតរស់នៅរួចផុតពីរបបដ៏ខាងខ្មៅងងឹតនេះ
មកពីដើមមកស្មានថាមានសាលាក្តីខ្មែរក្រហមចឹងផងតើមើលទៅបាត់ឃើញកាត់យុត្តិធម៌រត់យុត្តិធម៌ឲ្យជាជនត្រឹមត្រូវទៅ
In addition to legal proceedings, the ECCC's nationwide outreach, regional forum, and study tour programs have been perceived as significant factors in raising public awareness about the court among ordinary Cambodians, helping to enhance the public's understanding of the court process and its interest in the proceedings.
សូមឲ្យសហគមន៍អន្តរជាតិជួយផ្ដល់ជំនួយបន្ថែមដល់រដ្ឋាភិបាលដើម្បីធ្វើយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីឲ្យដំណើរការនៃការដោះស្រាយបញ្ហាខ្មែរក្រហមគឺសាលាក្តីខ្មែរក្រហមនេះឲ្យបានចប់ចុងចប់ដើមឈឺទៅមុខរហូតបាន
More than 100,000 people have visited the court since the start of the first trial. This is unprecedented in comparison with any other court. The ongoing outreach programs, organized by the ECCC, are expected to draw more visitors to the proceedings in the weeks and months to follow.